The great chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with the usual sounds of politics and debate. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their assigned seats, their voices mixing together in a symphony of alien languages. Some spoke through translators, others communicated with flashing lights or chemical signals. The chamber itself was massive, built into the heart of Nexus Prime, the most important planet in known space. Ambassador Zethkri of the Vorthan species stood at the central podium, his blue-scaled hands gesturing as he spoke about trade agreements between the Outer Rim worlds. His people were known throughout the galaxy for their skill in diplomacy, and Zethkri had held the position of council chairman for over 2 decades. He was discussing mineral rights when the first alarm sounded, the soft chime that echoed through. The chamber was not loud, but every representative knew what it meant. It was the emergency alert that had not been heard in living memory. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Even the most argumentative delegates fell silent. Dr. Yolandra, the chief science advisor, appeared on the main viewing screen. Her ethereal form shimmered with concern as she spoke in her musical voice. Chairman Zethkri, we have detected an unknown vessel approaching our space. Long-range sensors picked it up 3 hours ago? The chamber erupted in whispers and worried. Sounds, General Crystal, representing the armored hive species, clicked his mandibles together in agitation. Unknown vessel? That is impossible. All spacefaring civilizations are members of this council. That is what we believed, Dr. Yolandra replied. But this ship does not match any known design in our databases. It is approximately 300 meters long, constructed of an unknown metal alloy, and traveling at near-light speed. Ambassador Zethkri felt a chill run down his spine. The last time an unknown species had been encountered was over 3,000 years ago, when the crystalline beings of the Andromeda sector had made first contact. That had been a peaceful meeting, but it had still taken decades to establish proper communication and trust. Have you attempted to make contact? Zethkri asked. We have sent standard greeting protocols in all known languages. The vessel has not responded to any of our transmissions. Sage Namdar, the eldest member of the council, spoke from his position near the back of the chamber. His ancient voice carried the weight of millennia. In my long life I have seen many first contacts. This silence is unusual. Most species respond to mathematical sequences, even if they cannot understand language. The main screen shifted to show the approaching vessel. It was sleek and metallic, with clean lines that suggested advanced engineering. Unlike the organic curves favored by most galactic civilizations, this ship had sharp angles and geometric patterns. It looked dangerous, even though it showed no signs of weapons. How long until it reaches our space? General Crystal demanded. At current speed, approximately 6 hours, Dr. Yolandra answered. But Chairman, there is something else. The vessel appears to be slowing down. It is reducing speed in a controlled manner, suggesting they are aware of our presence. The chamber fell silent again. If the unknown ship was slowing down, it meant the beings inside were making a conscious decision to approach rather than simply passing through council space. Ambassador Zethkri made a quick decision. Activate first contact protocols. All military vessels are to maintain a safe distance but be ready to respond if needed. Dr. Yolandra, continue attempting communication. As the representatives began to disperse to their emergency stations, the impossible happened. The main communication array crackled to life with an incoming transmission from the unknown vessel. The voice that emerged was unlike anything they had ever heard. It was not the musical tones of the ethereals, the clicking of the hive species, or the electronic pulses of the cybernetic races. It was organic, but structured in a way that seemed both primitive and sophisticated. Mathematical sequence confirmed, the voice said in perfect galactic standard. We are representatives of the planet Earth, located in what you call the Sol System. We seek peaceful contact with your governing body. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted questions and concerns in dozens of languages. Security Chief Vexiron immediately began running scans on the transmission, trying to determine how these beings had learned their language so quickly. Sol System? Dr. Yolandra whispered to herself, already searching through the vast galactic database. There is no record of any inhabited planets in that sector. Ambassador Zethkri raised his hand for silence. Unknown vessel, this is the Galactic Council. We welcome peaceful contact. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions. There was a brief pause before the voice responded. I am Captain Jake Morrison of the exploration vessel New Horizon. We represent the United Earth Government. We have recently achieved faster-than-light travel and are seeking to establish diplomatic relations with other intelligent species. General Crickstall leaned forward in his seat. Recently achieved? How recently? Approximately 2 of your standard years ago, came the reply. We have been exploring our local space and detected your energy signatures. We hope to make contact. The implications of this statement sent waves of unease through the chamber. Most species took millions of years to develop space travel, and even longer to achieve faster-than-light capability. The fact that these humans had accomplished both in such a short time was deeply troubling. Captain Morrison, Ambassador Zethkri said carefully, we would be honored to meet with your representatives. However, we must follow proper first contact procedures. Are you willing to travel to our capital world of Nexus Prime? We would be honored, Captain Morrison replied. However, we should inform you that we have a diplomatic team prepared for this possibility. Commander Lisa Harper leads our first contact specialists. Dr. Yolandra had been frantically searching the databases during the conversation. What she found made her blood run cold. The Sol system was indeed in their records, but it was marked with a classification she had never seen before: Quarantine Zone, Precursor Authority, Access Forbiddance. The marking was older than any known civilization, dating back to the time of the precursors themselves. The beings who had vanished from the galaxy millions of years ago, leaving behind only ruins and warnings. As the unknown human vessel continued its approach to Nexus Prime, Dr. Yolandra quietly sent an urgent message to Ambassador Zethkri. The text was simple but terrifying. We need to talk, immediately. The great chamber of the Galactic Council, which had seen 3,000 years of peaceful debate and cooperation, was about to face its greatest challenge. The humans were coming, and none of them understood what that truly meant. Outside the chamber's great windows, the stars continued to shine as they had for billions of years. But change was coming to the galaxy, carried aboard a sleek ship called the New Horizon. And with that change would come fear, wonder, and the return of something the galaxy had thought lost forever. The age of humanity was about to begin, and the Galactic Council would never be the same. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going on for 6 hours straight. Representatives who normally spent their time arguing about trade routes and mining rights now faced something none of them had ever experienced. The arrival of a completely unknown species was not just unusual, it was supposed to be impossible. Ambassador Zethkri stood at the center of the chamber, his blue scales slightly darker than usual, a sign of stress among his people. Around him, the 47-member species of the Council debated in voices that ranged from musical to mechanical to purely telepathic. The translator systems worked overtime to keep up with the flood of different languages. The protocols are clear, General Crickstall announced, his armored exoskeleton clicking as he moved. Unknown species must be quarantined until we can determine their intentions and capabilities. Dr. Yolandra floated near the main display screen, her ethereal form pulsing with worry. The humans have been cooperative so far. They answered our questions and agreed to meet us here. That suggests peaceful intentions. Or it suggests they are intelligent enough to appear peaceful while planning something else, countered Ambassador Valtara, whose aquatic species had learned to be cautious through millions of years of evolution. We know nothing about their culture, their history, or their true capabilities. Sage Namdar, the oldest being in the chamber, spoke in his ancient voice. In my long life I have witnessed 12 first contact situations. Each one was different, but they all shared one thing: they took time. Proper first contact requires patience, understanding, and careful study. The human vessel, New Horizon, had taken up position at the edge of the Nexus Prime system. It had made no aggressive moves, but its very presence had changed everything. Security forces throughout the system were on high alert and emergency. Protocols that had not been used in millennia were now active. They claimed to have achieved faster-than-light travel only 2 years ago, Dr. Yolandra said, reading from her notes. Most species take millions of years to reach that level of technology. How is such rapid advancement possible? This question had been troubling many of the council members. The normal progression of civilization was well understood. A species would develop agriculture, then cities, then basic technology, then space, travel, and finally faster-than-light capability. This process typically took millions of years and followed predictable patterns. Perhaps they are not telling the truth, suggested Security Chief Vixiron, whose cybernetic implants glowed as he processed data. They might be an advanced species pretending to be primitive. Why would they do that? Ambassador Sethkri asked. To catch us off guard? To make us underestimate them? The debate continued for another hour before they reached a decision. The humans would be invited to Nexus Prime, but under strict security protocols. A small diplomatic team would be allowed to visit. While their ship remained under careful observation, 3 days later, the human shuttle approached Nexus Prime. The planet was a marvel of galactic engineering, with cities that floated in the clouds and underwater settlements that housed dozens of different species. It was a symbol of what cooperation and peaceful coexistence could achieve. Commander Lisa Harper sat in the pilot's seat of the shuttle, watching the planet grow larger. On the screen, she was a tall woman with short brown hair and steady gray eyes. Next to her sat Dr. Ben Rodriguez, a xenobiologist who had spent his career studying the possibility of alien life. Behind them, 3 other specialists completed their small team. It's beautiful, Dr. Rodriguez said, staring at the swirling clouds and floating cities. I never imagined anything like this. Remember, Commander Harper said, we're representing all of humanity here. Everything we say and do will be studied and analyzed. We need to be careful but also honest. The shuttle was guided to a landing platform in the heart of the capital city. As they descended, they could see crowds of different alien species gathering to watch. The translator in Commander Harper's ear was already picking up dozens of different languages, all discussing the arrival of the mysterious humans. When the shuttle doors opened, Commander Harper stepped out first. The air was slightly thicker than Earth's atmosphere, but their environmental suits compensated automatically. Before them stood a group of beings unlike anything they had ever seen. Ambassador Sethkri approached, his blue scales catching the light of the 3 suns overhead. Commander Harper, I am Ambassador Sethkri, Chairman of the Galactic Council. We welcome you to Nexus Prime. Thank you, Ambassador, Harper replied, extending her hand in the human gesture of greeting. We are honored to be here. The simple handshake caused a stir among the watching crowd. Physical contact between species was rare in galactic society, and the casual way the humans offered it suggested either great confidence or complete ignorance of proper protocol. Dr. Yolandra floated closer, her ethereal form shimmering with curiosity. Commander Harper, we are fascinated by your species. Your rapid technological advancement is unlike anything in our records. We're a curious species, Dr. Rodriguez answered. When we set our minds to something, we tend to work at it until we succeed. Space travel was always a dream of ours. This answer troubled several of the council members. The casual way the humans spoke about achieving the impossible suggested they did not understand how unusual their accomplishments were. The human delegation was given a tour of the city, with General Crystal and Security Chief Vixiron maintaining a discreet but constant watch. They visited the Great Library, where the history of all known species was kept. They saw the medical centers where beings from different worlds received treatment together. They toured the factories where impossible technologies were created through the cooperation of dozens of different species. How long did it take to build all this? Commander Harper asked as they stood on an observation deck overlooking the city. The current city has been under construction for about 50,000 years, Ambassador Zethkri replied. But the basic infrastructure is much older. Dr. Rodriguez pulled out a device and began taking notes. 50,000 years? That's incredible. On Earth, our oldest permanent cities are only about 10,000 years old. The casual mention of Earth's short history sent another wave of unease through their guides. A species that had built cities in only 10,000 years and achieved space travel in a few millennia was developing at a rate that seemed impossible. During the tour, Captain Jake Morrison remained on the New Horizon, but he maintained constant communication with the diplomatic team. His conversations with the Nexus Prime traffic controllers were being recorded and analyzed by every major intelligence agency in the galaxy. "Your ship is very advanced," one of the controllers had commented. "The hull material is unlike anything in our databases." "It's a new alloy we developed," Captain Morrison had replied. "We had to solve some problems with radiation shielding for long-distance travel." Such casual mentions of solving major technological challenges were becoming a pattern. The humans spoke about overcoming obstacles that had taken other species thousands of years to address, and they did it as if it were nothing special. As the day continued, the council members watching the humans began to notice other disturbing patterns. The humans adapted quickly to new situations. They asked intelligent questions about every technology they saw. They seemed to understand complex concepts almost immediately. Most troubling of all, they showed no signs of being overwhelmed by the vastness of galactic civilization. Most species, when first encountering the Council, were shocked by the scope of what they were joining. The humans seemed to take it all in stride, as if they had expected to find something like this. By evening, when the human delegation was shown to their quarters, the Council members were more worried than when the day had started. These humans were not the primitive species they had expected. They were something else entirely, and nobody could figure out exactly what that meant. In the secure council chambers, Ambassador Zethkri called another emergency session. The question was no longer whether the humans were friendly or hostile. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for what humanity might become. Dr. Yolandra had not slept in 3 days. Her ethereal form floated in the deepest levels of the Great Archive, surrounded by data streams that stretched back millions of years. The arrival of the humans had triggered something she had never experienced before, a desperate need to understand what they were dealing with. The archive was the most secure location on Nexus Prime, built into the planet's core and protected by layers of both physical and digital security. It contained the complete history of galactic civilization, from the first cave paintings of primitive species to the most advanced theoretical physics of the present day. If answers about humanity existed anywhere, they would be found here. Archivist Pelmuth, a being made of living crystal, materialized beside her. His faceted form reflected the light of the data streams in complex patterns. "Dr. Yolandra, you have been searching for 72 hours. Perhaps you should rest?" "I cannot rest," she replied, her voice carrying harmonics of worry. "These humans are not what they appear to be. Every conversation, every casual comment they make suggests something impossible." She gestured to the holographic displays surrounding them. "Look at this." Captain Morrison mentioned that they solved radiation shielding problems. But the solution he described should have taken a species thousands of years to develop. He talks about it like it was a simple engineering challenge. Pelmuth's crystal form pulsed with understanding. "You believe they are hiding their true technological level?" "No, that is what troubles me most. I think they are being completely honest. They really did develop faster than light travel in just 2 years. They really did solve problems that take other species millennia to understand. The question is how." Above them, in the comfortable guest quarters of the diplomatic sector, the human delegation was settling in for their 3rd night on Nexus Prime. Commander Lisa Harper stood by the window, looking out at the floating cities that glowed in the darkness. The view was beautiful, but she could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. "Have you noticed how they react to our stories?" Dr. Ben Rodriguez asked, joining her at the window. Every time we mention something about Earth's history, they get this look. What kind of look? Fear, like we are telling them something terrifying instead of just talking about our home. Commander Harper nodded. She had noticed it too. When they talked about humanity's wars, the council members became uncomfortable. When they mentioned how quickly humans adapted to new environments, the aliens exchanged worried glances. When they described human determination and refusal to give up, the mood in the room grew tense. Maybe they are just shocked by how violent our history is, she suggested. Most of these species seem very peaceful. I studied their histories before we came here, Dr. Rodriguez said. They all had wars, they all had conflicts. Some of them were far more violent than anything humans ever did. But they do not react this way when talking about their own past. Back in the archive, Dr. Yolandra had expanded her search to include the oldest records in the database. She was looking for any mention of the Sol system, any reference to Earth, any clue about why the humans seemed so different from every other species in the galaxy. The search algorithms worked through petabytes of data, analyzing everything from ancient star maps to theoretical physics papers. For hours, nothing unusual appeared. Then, buried in a section of records so old that most beings had forgotten they existed, she found something that made her entire form freeze in shock. "Pelmuth," she whispered, "activate the highest security protocols. What I'm about to show you is classified beyond any level we have ever dealt with." The crystal being immediately sealed the chamber and activated privacy shields that would prevent any form of surveillance. "What have you found?" Dr. Yolandra displayed the record on the main screen. It was a star chart, but not like any modern version. This one was primitive, hand-drawn, and incredibly ancient. In the corner, written in symbols that predated known galactic writing, was a single word that the translation matrix could barely recognize: quarantine. "This chart shows the Sol system," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But look at the date stamp." Pelmuth examined the data and his crystal form darkened with disbelief. "This record is over 2 million years old. It predates the formation of the Galactic Council by eons. It predates every known civilization," Dr. Yolandra corrected, "except one." The implication hit them both at the same time. The precursors. The mysterious first civilization that had vanished from the galaxy millions of years ago, leaving behind only ruins and legends. They had been the builders of the first great works, the creators of technologies that modern science still could not understand. "Show me everything," Pelmuth commanded, his usual calm demeanor replaced by urgent curiosity. Dr. Yolandra pulled up more records, each one more disturbing than the last. The Sol system appeared in dozens of ancient documents, always marked with warnings: restricted access, evolutionary quarantine, synthesis protocol sealed. The words meant nothing to modern galactic civilization, but they all pointed to the same conclusion. The precursors had been very interested in Earth. Meanwhile, in the diplomatic quarters, Captain Jake Morrison was having a casual conversation with one of the traffic controllers. He was describing Earth's history, talking about how humans had spread across their planet and adapted to every environment. "We live everywhere now," he said cheerfully. "Deserts, mountains, underwater cities, polar regions. Humans can adapt to almost anything if we put our minds to it." The traffic controller, a being from a species that had taken millions of years to adapt to different climates on their own world, felt a chill run through his body. How long did this adaptation take? Oh, maybe 50,000 years or so. We are pretty good at figuring out how to survive in new places. This conversation, like all the others, was being recorded and analyzed. When the report reached the council chambers, it added another piece to a puzzle that was becoming more frightening by the hour. Back in the archive, Dr. Yolandra had found something that made her question everything she thought she knew about galactic history. Deep in the precursor records, she discovered a file marked Final Protocol Earth Containment. The file was encrypted with security measures that took her hours to break. When she finally accessed it, what she found changed everything. The document was a research report, written in the scientific style of the precursors. It described a project called Synthesis, an attempt to create the perfect evolutionary template. The precursors had been trying to develop a species that could adapt faster than any other, that could solve problems at an unprecedented rate, that could evolve not just biologically but technologically and socially. The project had been a success. Too much of a success. The template species had developed so rapidly that they had transcended physical existence within a few thousand years. They had become something beyond biological life, something that existed on a level the precursors themselves could not understand, but before they transcended, they had done something that terrified their creators. They had seeded their genetic template on a primitive world, locked in a basic biological form, waiting for the right evolutionary pressures to activate. That world was Earth. "The humans are not just another species," Dr. Yolandra whispered to Pelmuth. "They are the descendants of the precursors' greatest creation. And if this report is correct, they are beginning to awaken." The crystal being examined the data with growing horror. "What does awaken mean?" "It means," Dr. Yolandra said, her voice filled with dread, "that humanity is not evolving like a normal species. They are returning to what they were meant to be, and when that process is complete, they will be more advanced than anything the galaxy has ever seen." As if to emphasize her point, another report arrived from the surface. Dr. Ben Rodriguez had been casually discussing human medicine with the medical staff at the hospital they had visited. He had mentioned that humans had eliminated most diseases on their world and were working on extending their lifespans indefinitely. The medical staff, representing species that had taken millions of years to develop basic health care, had listened in stunned silence as the human described advances that should have been impossible for such a young civilization. Dr. Yolandra stared at the data streaming across her screens. The evidence was overwhelming. Humanity was not just another species joining the galactic community. They were the return of something that had once been the most advanced beings in the universe, and they were getting stronger every day. The question was no longer whether the humans were friendly or hostile. The question was whether the galaxy could survive their awakening. The emergency council session had been called in the middle of the night. Representatives from all 47 species hurried through the corridors of the council building, their various forms of movement creating a strange symphony of sounds. Some walked, others floated, and a few rolled on mechanical wheels. All of them sensed that something important was about to happen. Ambassador Zethkri stood at the center of the chamber, his blue scales darker than they had ever been. The stress of the past week had affected him deeply, and the other council members could see it in his posture. Dr. Yolandra floated beside him, her ethereal form flickering with nervous energy. "Fellow council members," Zethkri began, "we have discovered information about the humans that changes everything we thought we knew about first contact." The chamber fell silent. Even the most talkative species stopped their conversations and focused on the chairman. "Dr. Yolandra will present her findings," he continued. Stepping aside, the ethereal being moved to the center of the chamber, and the main display screen activated. Ancient star charts appeared, showing the Sol system marked with symbols that predated galactic civilization. "The humans are not what they appear to be," Dr. Yolandra said, her musical voice carrying through the chamber. "They are not a young species that recently achieved space travel. They are something far more significant." General Krickstall clicked his mandibles impatiently. "What do you mean?" "We have spoken with them. They told us about their history, their planet, their recent achievements." "Everything they told us is true," Dr. Yolandra replied. "But they do not understand what they really are." She gestured to the display, showing the ancient precursor records. The Sol system was placed under quarantine 2 million years ago by the precursors. Earth was marked as a restricted zone, sealed away from the rest of the galaxy. Ambassador Veltara aquatic form rippled with concern. Why would the precursors quarantine a primitive world? "Because it was not primitive," Dr. Yolandra answered. "It was the site of their greatest experiment." The display changed to show the precursor research documents. The translation was difficult, but the basic meaning was clear. The precursors had been trying to create the perfect species, one that could evolve and adapt faster than any other. They succeeded, Dr. Yolandra continued, but their success was so complete that it frightened them. The template species they created advanced so rapidly that they transcended physical existence within a few thousand years. Security Chief Vexeron's cybernetic implants glowed as he processed the information. What happened to these template beings? They moved beyond physical reality, Dr. Yolandra explained. But before they transcended, they did something that terrified the precursors. They seeded their genetic template on Earth, locked in a primitive biological form. The implications began to sink in. Representatives started talking among themselves, their voices rising in alarm. You are saying, General Kriegstyle said slowly, that the humans are descendants of the precursor's ultimate creation. Yes, Dr. Yolandra confirmed. And they are beginning to awaken. At that moment, the chamber doors opened, and a figure that most of the council had thought was just a legend walked in. Sage Namdar, the eldest being in the galaxy, moved slowly to the center of the chamber. His ancient form was bent with age, but his eyes still held the wisdom of millions of years. I have been listening to this discussion, he said, his voice carrying the weight of ages. And I must tell you that Dr. Yolandra is correct. My people's ancestral memories go back to the time of the precursors, and we remember the warnings they left. The chamber became so quiet that even the ventilation system seemed loud. Sage Namdar was the oldest living being in known space, and his memories were considered sacred by all civilizations. The precursors spoke of the Earth Project, he continued. They called it their greatest achievement and their greatest mistake. They created a species that could adapt, evolve, and advance at a rate that defied all natural laws. He paused, looking around the chamber at the faces of beings who were beginning to understand the true magnitude of what they were dealing with. When the template species transcended, the precursors tried to destroy Earth. They could not. The genetic template was too deeply embedded in the planet's biology. So they sealed it away, hoping that the evolutionary pressures would never be strong enough to activate it. Ambassador Zethkri felt a chill run through his entire body. What kind of evolutionary pressures? Global disasters, wars, resource scarcity, the need to adapt quickly or die, Sage Namdar explained. The humans have experienced all of these things. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, plagues, world wars. Each crisis has pushed them to evolve faster. In the diplomatic quarters, Commander Lisa Harper was having dinner with Dr. Ben Rodriguez and Dr. Kate Sullivan, their historian. They were discussing their observations about galactic civilization when Dr. Sullivan made a comment that would have terrified the council if they had heard it. It's interesting how slowly these species developed, she said, cutting into her alien fruit. I mean, millions of years to achieve space travel? On Earth, we went from the first airplane to landing. On the moon in less than 70 years? Maybe they are just more peaceful than us, Dr. Rodriguez suggested. They did not have the same drive to advance quickly. Or maybe, Dr. Sullivan said thoughtfully, they are just not built for rapid advancement. Humans seem to have a natural ability to adapt and innovate quickly. It might be something unique to our species. If the council members had heard this casual conversation, they would have realized that the humans were beginning to understand their own nature. Dr. Sullivan's academic interest in human uniqueness was exactly the kind of self-awareness that the precursors had feared back in the council chamber. Sage Namdar continued his revelation. The precursors left warnings about the signs of awakening, rapid technological advancement, quick adaptation to new environments, the ability to solve problems that should take millennia to understand. The humans have demonstrated all of these traits, Dr. Yolandra added. They achieved faster-than-light travel in just 2 years. They adapted to every environment on their planet in a few thousand years. They casually mentioned solving technological problems that take other species millennia to understand. General Kriegstall's exoskeleton clicked nervously. What happens when they fully awaken? According to the precursor records, Dr. Yolandra said, they will become more advanced than anything the galaxy has ever seen. They will transcend the limitations that bind other species. And they will remember, Sage Namdar added ominously. The ancestral memories will surface. They will remember what they once were, and they will reclaim their place as the galaxy's dominant species. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted questions and concerns in dozens of languages. Some demanded immediate action against Earth. Others suggested fleeing the galaxy entirely. Ambassador Zethkri raised his hand for silence, but it took several minutes for the chamber to calm down. What do the precursor records say about stopping this awakening? Dr. Yolandra's form flickered with uncertainty. The records are unclear. The precursors tried many things, but nothing worked. The template is too deeply embedded. The awakening appears to be inevitable. How long do we have? Security Chief Vixiron asked. Unknown, Dr. Yolandra replied. But based on their current rate of advancement, it could be decades, centuries, or it could be happening right now. As if to emphasize her point, a communication arrived from the surface. Dr. Kate Sullivan had been visiting the Great Library and had made some observations about galactic history that troubled the librarians. She had noticed patterns in the development of different species and had begun to theorize about why humans seemed so different. She's asking questions about evolutionary rates, the librarian reported. She wants to know why humans developed so much faster than other species. She is beginning to research the concept of directed evolution. The council members looked at each other with growing alarm. The human historian was starting to piece together the truth about her own species. We need to make a decision, Ambassador Zethkri said. Do we tell them the truth about what they are? Do we try to stop their awakening? Or do we prepare for the return of the galaxy's former masters? Sage Namdar looked around the chamber, at the faces of beings who were struggling to comprehend the magnitude of their situation. The precursors faced the same choice, he said quietly. They chose to hide the truth and hope for the best. We all know how that ended. The chamber fell, silent again as the council members realized they were facing a decision that would determine the fate of galactic civilization. The humans were awakening, and there might be nothing anyone could do to stop it. Outside, in the diplomatic quarters, Commander Harper stood by her window, looking up at the stars. She had no idea that her presence had changed everything, or that the peaceful galaxy she was trying to join was paralyzed with fear about what humanity might become. The age of awakening had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The word spread through Nexus Prime like a virus. Despite the Council's attempts to maintain secrecy, the truth about humanity leaked from one department to another. Within hours, every major government in the galaxy knew what the humans really were, and panic began to set in. Ambassador Zethkri had not left his office in 2 days. His desk was covered with urgent messages from world leaders, military commanders, and scientists across the galaxy. Each message asked the same basic question: what should they do about the humans? The Vorthan Federation wanted to evacuate their border worlds immediately. The Crystalline Collective was requesting permission to seal their space lanes. 3. Minor species had already petitioned to leave the galaxy entirely, asking for colony ships to take them to the neighboring Andromeda galaxy. General Crickstal entered the office without being announced, his armored exoskeleton clicking with agitation. Ambassador, we need to make a decision now. My military advisors are demanding action. What kind of action? Zethkri asked wearily. They want permission to launch a preemptive strike against Earth while the humans are still in their primitive stage. Zethkri's scales darkened further. You want to commit genocide against a peaceful species because of something they might become? Not genocide, General Crickstal corrected. Prevention. If the precursor records are correct, waiting for them to fully awaken could mean the end of galactic civilization as we know it. The debate had been raging for days. Military leaders across the galaxy were pushing for immediate action. They argued that humanity was still relatively weak and could be stopped before they became unstoppable. Scientists disagreed, pointing out that any attack might actually accelerate the awakening process. Meanwhile, in the diplomatic quarters, the human delegation was beginning to notice that something had changed. The friendly curiosity they had encountered on their first day had been replaced by nervous fear and barely concealed hostility. Dr. Ben Rodriguez was the first to voice what they were all thinking. "Something is wrong," he told Commander Lisa Harper as they walked through the corridors of the diplomatic building. "The guards who were assigned to protect us are now watching us like we are prisoners." Commander Harper had noticed it too. Their movements were being restricted. Requests to visit certain areas of the city were being denied. Most troubling of all, their communications with the New Horizon were being monitored and sometimes delayed. "Maybe they are just being cautious," she suggested. But her voice lacked conviction. Dr. Kate Sullivan, who had been spending her time in the Great Library, had noticed even more disturbing changes. "The librarians will not let me access certain historical records anymore," she reported. "When I ask about the development rates of different species, they change the subject." Dr. Rodriguez frowned. "Development rates? What kind of questions were you asking?" "I was researching why humans seem to advance so much faster than other species. It is really unusual when you look at the data. Most species take millions of years to achieve what we accomplished in just a few thousand." Unknown. To Dr. Sullivan, her research had triggered every security alert in the Galactic Intelligence Network. Her questions about human uniqueness and rapid development had been reported to the highest levels of government on the New Horizon. Captain Jake Morrison was dealing with his own set of problems. The friendly traffic controllers who had welcomed them a week ago were now giving them minimal information and seemed nervous during every conversation. "Captain," his communications officer, Lieutenant Amy Carter, reported, "I am detecting unusual ship movements throughout the system. Military vessels are taking up positions around us." Captain Morrison studied the tactical display. Dozens of ships from different species had arrived in the system over the past few days. They maintained a respectful distance, but their positions formed a clear containment pattern around the human vessel. "Are we under quarantine?" he asked. "It looks that way, sir. But no one has officially told us that." The situation was becoming more tense by the hour. On dozens of worlds across the galaxy, emergency meetings were being held. Some governments were preparing evacuation plans. Others were mobilizing their military forces. A few were making secret preparations to abandon their home systems entirely. Ambassador Veltara of the Aquatic Alliance called an emergency session of the Outer Rim governments. "We need to consider the possibility that our part of the galaxy may no longer be safe," she announced to the assembled representatives. "You are talking about abandoning our homes because of a species that has shown no hostile intentions," protested Ambassador Catherine of the Peaceful Traders Union. "They do not need to show hostile intentions," Veltara replied. "According to the precursor records, when they fully awaken, they will not be able to help themselves. They will become what they were designed to be, the dominant species in the galaxy." The debate continued across multiple star systems. Some species wanted to fight. Others wanted to flee. A few suggested trying to negotiate with humanity before they fully awakened. Dr. Yolandra had been working around the clock, trying to understand more about the awakening process. Her research had revealed disturbing patterns in human behavior that suggested the process was accelerating. "Look at this," she showed Security Chief Vexiron. "Every time the humans encounter a new technology or concept, they immediately begin to understand it at a fundamental level." Dr. Rodriguez spent 1 hour in our medical facility and began asking questions about treatments that took our doctors centuries to develop. "What does that mean?" Vexiron asked. "It means the awakening is not a sudden event. It is happening gradually. Every day they are exposed to advanced galactic civilization." This revelation sent new waves of panic through the Council. If exposure to galactic technology was accelerating the awakening, then the humans were becoming more dangerous with every passing day. The breaking point came when Dr. Kate Sullivan made a discovery in the Great Library that changed everything. While researching ancient civilizations, she found references to the precursors that mentioned something called the Earth Project. "This is interesting," she told the librarian, a nervous being from the archive species. "It says here that the precursors had some kind of special interest in a planet in what they called the Sol system. That is where Earth is located." The librarian immediately contacted security, and within minutes, Dr. Sullivan was being escorted away from the research terminals. Her questions had been reported to the highest levels of the galactic government. "Why can I not continue my research?" she asked her escorts. "Security protocols," they replied, but she could see the fear in their eyes when Dr. Sullivan was returned to the diplomatic quarters. She immediately told Commander Harper what had happened. "They are hiding something about Earth," she said. "Something important." Commander Harper felt a cold certainty settle in her stomach. "We need to contact Captain Morrison immediately." But when they tried to establish communication with the New Horizon, they discovered that their communications were being blocked. They were no longer guests of the Galactic Council. They were prisoners. General Crickstall had convinced a significant portion of the military leadership that action needed to be taken immediately. "Every day we wait, they become stronger," he argued in secure military channels. "If we are going to act, it must be now." Plans were being made in secret. Military forces were being positioned. Some species were preparing to launch coordinated strikes against Earth while others readied evacuation fleets. The peaceful galaxy that had existed for millennia was fracturing under the weight of fear. Ancient alliances were being questioned. Species that had been friends for thousands of years were now viewing each other with suspicion, wondering who could be trusted if the humans had to be stopped. On Earth, billions of humans went about their daily lives completely unaware that their entire species had become the focus of galactic terror. They did not know that their simple desire to explore the stars had triggered a crisis that threatened to tear apart the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever known. In the council chambers of Nexus Prime, Ambassador Zethkri stood before a gathering that was more like a war council than a diplomatic assembly. Representatives demanded action. Military leaders called for preemptive strikes. Scientists warned of consequences no one could predict. "We have 48 hours to make a decision," General Crickstall announced. "After that, several species are planning to take independent action." The ultimatum was clear. The Galactic Council had 2 days to decide the fate of humanity. After that, the galaxy's fragile peace would shatter, and nothing would ever be the same. Commander Harper stood by her window, looking out at the beautiful, floating cities of Nexus Prime. She could see the lights of military ships in the distance, and she finally understood the truth. The galaxy was not paralyzed by fear of what humanity might do. It was paralyzed by fear of what humanity was destined to become, and that destiny was approaching faster than anyone had imagined. The final vote was scheduled for noon, Galactic Standard Time. Representatives from 47 species had gathered in the Great Chamber, but the atmosphere was nothing like the peaceful debates of the past. Military advisors stood behind every delegation. Security forces filled the galleries. The chamber itself was sealed and guarded by the most advanced defense systems in the galaxy. Ambassador Zethkri looked out at the assembled representatives and saw fear in every face. Some species had already begun evacuating their core worlds. Others had mobilized their entire military forces. The galaxy was on the brink of chaos, and the decision they made today would determine whether civilization survived or collapsed. "The vote is simple," he announced to the chamber. "Do we classify humanity as a threat that must be eliminated, or do we attempt peaceful coexistence despite the risks?" General Crickstall stood at the military advisor station, his armored form radiating confidence. "The military recommendation is clear. Strike now while they are still vulnerable. Every day we delay increases the risk exponentially." Dr. Yolandra floated near the science advisory panel, her ethereal form flickering with uncertainty. "The scientific evidence suggests that any aggressive action might trigger the very awakening we fear. We could cause the exact outcome we are trying to prevent." The debate had been raging for hours when the unexpected happened. Every communication system in the chamber activated simultaneously. The main screen lit up with an image that made every representative freeze in shock. A human woman with gray hair and kind eyes appeared on the screen. She wore a simple blue uniform with symbols that the translation systems identified as representing Earth's unified government. Behind her stood other humans, and behind them was a view of Earth from space. "I am President Mary Foster of the United Earth Government," she said, her voice calm and clear. "I am addressing the Galactic Council because we have learned the truth about why you fear us." The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted questions and demands. Security forces moved to cut the transmission, but they discovered that the signal was coming through channels they did not even know existed. "Please," President Foster continued, raising her hand for silence, "we know about the precursors. We know about the Earth Project. We know what we are supposed to become." Ambassador Zethkri felt his heart stop. If the humans knew the truth about their nature, then everything had changed. 3 days ago, President Foster explained, our archaeological teams on Earth made a discovery that changed our understanding of human history. We found precursor ruins buried beneath our oldest cities. We found records that explained why we developed so much faster than other species. In the diplomatic quarters on Nexus Prime, Commander Lisa Harper and her team watched the broadcast in stunned silence. They had been cut off from communication with Earth for days, not knowing that their entire planet had been working to understand the crisis. "We know you are afraid," President Foster continued. "You believe that we will awaken into something that will dominate or destroy galactic civilization. But you are wrong about one crucial thing." She paused, looking directly into the camera with eyes that seemed to see through the screen into the souls of every being watching. "The awakening is not automatic. It is not inevitable. It is a choice." Dr. Yolandra Esform brightened with sudden understanding. In all her research into the precursor records, she had focused on the warnings and the fears. She had not considered that the process might require conscious decision. The precursor's template gave us the potential to transcend biological limitations, President Foster explained. But potential is not the same as destiny. We can choose to remain as we are, or we can choose to become something more. The choice is ours to make. General Krickstall's mandibles clicked with skepticism. "And what choice do you make?" he demanded, though she could not hear him. As if responding to his unspoken question, President Foster smiled. "We choose partnership." The word sent ripples of confusion through the chamber. Partnership was not what anyone had expected to hear. "We propose a new galactic order," President Foster continued. "Not one where humans dominate, but one where we work together to help all species reach their full potential. The precursors made the mistake of trying to create the perfect species in isolation. We believe perfection comes through cooperation." Behind President Foster, other humans stepped forward. Dr. Kate Sullivan, who had somehow returned to Earth, spoke next. "Our research shows that every species in the galaxy has unique evolutionary advantages," she said. "The ethereals have transcended physical limitations in ways humans cannot. The crystalline beings have achieved perfect memory storage. The cybernetic species have mastered the integration of biology and technology." Another human, a scientist, whose name appeared on screen as Dr. Tony Clark, added, "What if, instead of one species ascending beyond the others, we shared our abilities? What if the awakening was not just human, but galactic?" The implications were staggering. Instead of humanity becoming the galaxy's masters, they were proposing to help every species achieve their own form of transcendence. "This is impossible," Ambassador Valtara whispered to her aide. "No species has ever offered to share evolutionary advantages." But President Foster was not finished. "We understand that trust must be earned. We propose to begin with small steps. We will share our rapid adaptation techniques with species facing environmental challenges. We will work with your scientists to understand how our different evolutionary paths can complement each other." She gestured to someone off-screen, and Commander Harper appeared in the transmission. Commander Harper and her team have been studying your civilization for the past week. They have learned more about galactic society than most species learn in decades. But more importantly, they have learned that cooperation creates better results than competition. Commander Harper stepped forward. Every species we have met has achievements that amaze us. We do not want to dominate you. We want to learn from you and help you learn from us. The transmission continued for another 10 minutes with President Foster outlining specific proposals for cooperation, research sharing, and mutual assistance. She addressed the military concerns by offering to limit human expansion and submit to galactic oversight of their development. Most importantly, she made a promise that shocked everyone listening. If the galactic community decides that human awakening poses too great a risk, we will choose to remain as we are. We will not pursue the full activation of our precursor heritage. When the transmission ended, the chamber fell into complete silence. No one had expected this. The humans were offering to sacrifice their evolutionary destiny for the sake of galactic peace. Sage Namdar was the first to speak. In all my millions of years, I have never seen a species offer to limit their own development for the sake of others. It could be a trick, General Crystal argued, but his voice lacked conviction. What kind of trick involves offering to remain weaker than you could be? Dr. Yolandra asked. The debate that followed was different from any that had come before. Instead of discussing how to stop humanity, they found themselves discussing whether humanity's offer was genuine, and whether it could work. Ambassador Zethkri called for the vote 3 hours later. The question had changed from whether to eliminate humanity to whether to accept their proposal for partnership. The vote was close. Some species remained too frightened to trust. Others worried about setting a precedent for evolutionary modification. But in the end, the promise of shared advancement won over the fear of human domination. 25 species voted in favor of accepting humanity's proposal. 22 voted against or abstained. It was enough. The motion passes, Ambassador, Zethkri announced. The Galactic Council accepts humanity's proposal for cooperative evolution and partnership. The chamber erupted in a mixture of cheers and protests, but the decision was made. Humanity would be welcomed into galactic civilization, not as conquerors returning to reclaim their throne, but as partners in a new age of cooperation. In the diplomatic quarters, Commander Harper felt tears streaming down her face. They had come to the stars hoping to find friends among the stars. Instead, they had nearly started a galactic war simply by existing. But now, as she looked out at the floating cities of Nexus Prime, she saw something different. She saw the beginning of a future where the galaxy's greatest achievements would come not from one species ascending above the others, but from all species ascending together. The age of fear was ending. The age of partnership was about to begin. And in the depths of space, the ruins of precursor worlds that had stood empty for millions of years began to glow with new life, as if the galaxy itself was awakening to possibilities that had never existed before.